Hello everyone, just wanted to do a small video. Obviously I'm still grieving for my friend and that and stuff, so that part I am grieving on. But the things, so I want to talk about the sexual assault stuff. I feel like I've come sort of full circle with it now. I'm still obviously still getting past it and that in some degree, but I've gotten to a point now where I'm not as afraid to be a little bit more open than I was, but I'm also sort of still holding my boundaries and stuff like that in place. So things like that. So, but the differences from before, I think I used to not be afraid of like revealing myself to people and talking about myself in specific ways to people. I used to think that was like an okay thing to do, and not that it's not an okay if other people feel that's still something. But what I think it highlighted for me, especially after it happened, was that I felt like everybody wanted to know me. Like it was almost like what it felt like was I suddenly then felt ashamed of my body. I suddenly felt ashamed of everything. I even felt ashamed of feeling sexual myself and approaching guys and things like that. I felt ashamed of myself in those areas because I was sort of worrying that if I wanted to have sex, what does that make me as bad as the people who've hurt me as well? Like if I express myself sexually to anyone, is that gonna also come across in a like perverse way? And I was scared. I was literally scared of literally being close to someone, not just because I was worried that I would get attacked again, but that I myself may also do something to someone else. And I sort of was in that I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to obsess over anyone. I don't want to cling onto anyone that isn't interested in me. And I want to sort of move away from that and be like, if that's finished, that's it. I can't go continue with it. So I'm then like, pulling myself away a little bit and going, actually, it's, I've been through all this. I know what it's like to be through that, so I don't want to do that to anyone else. So I'm sort of owning up my own ways of going about things. Like I used to not worry about this sort of stuff, but now that I've been through it myself, I'm in a, I don't want to be as bad as the people that have done this to me. So in that respect, I'm starting to be a bit more, if somebody isn't interested in me and they've told me several times it's just a no, instead of me keep pursuing them, I'm just like, you know what, I can't keep pursuing them, it's not gonna happen. How about I just pull myself back, work out where I need to be for myself, um, body wise, I had been ashamed of myself for a while. Sexually, I'd been ashamed of myself for a while, and things like that. I'm still not quite ready to go with anyone just yet either. Sort of a, sort of thing. Not that I've met anyone just yet, but I'm in that. I find sometimes I felt the other issue I had with dating that I found afterwards is everyone's kind of rushing you into having sex almost straight away, and I found that rather annoying because sometimes I'm not, at times I'm not ready for it right now. And then there was other times I might have been up for it, but people would refuse to do it with me, sort of thing, and then I'd feel the opposite way, and I'd suddenly feel at a loss, like I felt like either nobody really wanted me the other way, so I felt like, I felt like like low self-esteem, low self-conscious, everything. Like it got in my head that maybe I'm not as attractive as I used to be, or maybe because I don't offer sex straight away, maybe people don't really want me. And it got into my head, all of this got into my head, like maybe nobody will want me if I'm, like I've, and it's just, those feelings are the worst feelings. So anyway, I've gone full circle with it now because I realised, after talking to my friends, and both male friends and even female friends, I both it can be as bad on each side. We all have our hang-ups, and we all have our issues in like relationships and things. You know, at one point when I was younger, I used, you know, after my dad hurt my mum and everything like that, and growing up to find that some men, you know, or some men are, you know, not so dissimilar, you know, in certain areas, but, you know, I used to be the men this, men that, and I hated it because I didn't want to think that. I had friends at school that were men, and I was like, I didn't mind them as friends, but, you know, in my head I was like, oh, they're just going to turn out to be the same kind of thing, and I hated feeling that way because I didn't want to be against men or anything, but it got into my head that way. And then as I grew up, I started meeting more friends that were men, and then I started talking to them more, and I realised actually men just have as much problems sometimes being men than women, and I realised that women, there's just as many women that have problems, you know, causing issues with men as, you know, the other way around, and then it becomes this who's which way round is it? And I feel like it's kind of sometimes a vicious cycle. It's all like, you know, sometimes there's a girl trying to get with a guy who doesn't want to get with them, and then there's a guy wanting to get with a girl that doesn't want to get with them, or vice versa, or if you're same sex, either way, and it always seems to be like as soon as you say I don't know, you're bisexual, or you say that you're a certain way, everybody seems to think, oh, that means you want everybody. That means you want to just spread your legs and go with everyone. It's like, no, that's not what I meant at all. And I was battling with that affliction for so long. I used to think, because I'm bisexual, that must mean I'm greedy and I want everyone. And I was even afraid to even go with a woman at one point because I thought it meant as soon as I go with a woman, that means every single person is going to suddenly want to be with me. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that. That's too much for me. I don't want to be with everyone. I can't be with everyone. Even if I like two genders, you know, in some degree, you know, two people is too much for me. I mean, no, that's too much. It was just me trying to accept what it meant for me, and everyone's got their own version of what that means for them, and so I've gone along with everybody else's version because that's, you know, that's the status quo, isn't it? You go with what you think bisexual means to everybody else because that's what it's been stated as, but actually no, being bisexual does not mean you go liking every single person on the planet. You know, it doesn't mean you have to go with everyone on the planet, the same as, you know, and sort of thing. It's just accepting that you have feelings sometimes for both men and female at some points, and you know, it's okay to express that and it's okay to know those things. But if people tell you that you're wrong for being bisexual, or people make you feel like you can't be either or both, or suddenly somebody wants you to suddenly be with them like a certain way, and you're like, I'm not ready for that, or I might not want to go, might not want to have a threesome. That's the other one. That was the other thing that used to be presented to me. Oh, maybe you'd have a threesome, and I'd be like, no, I don't really want to have a threesome with another woman. I don't, you know, there's that issue because I might not fancy the woman that they're offering, not in a bad way, like just I might not have feelings for that particular woman, and you know, suddenly it's like, oh, have sex with this woman, and I'm like, no. Or you know, she might have feelings for me, but she might not have feelings for men, and it was all of that. But I used to get nervous of doing that because I didn't want to encourage a woman into in a situation that might they get felt uncomfortable, and at the same time I didn't want to sort of. And then I felt weird coming on, you know, I didn't want to come on to women because I suddenly felt like I was, you know, weird as well for that. And I was like, oh, I can't just ask out a woman the same way I would a guy because, you know, that would, you know, I don't want to put women off and stuff. And then sometimes I got put off with women coming to me because sometimes some women are quite full on as much as guys are, and I go, oh, I don't want to go with that woman because she scares me, sort of thing. And at the same time, like, you know, it's still the alarm bells that as soon as you say you're one way or the other, suddenly everybody thinks, oh, you're ready for me, sort of thing. And I'm like, no, that's not the case at all. I'm not like wanting everybody. That's not what I meant. It's just I've learned that I majority of the time I do like men more than women. That is what I've come to learn. But occasionally have been females in my time that I've particularly liked, and gone, right, if I was if I was a man, I would definitely go with that woman, sort of thing. Didn't think of it like being bisexual. I just was like, if I was a man, yeah, I'd definitely go with her, sort of thing. I didn't think of it in a sexual way. I was just in a, but then in my head, I hated being feeling sexual about it because I hated thinking I would do something terrible to someone. So I'd be like, no, I would never do something terrible to that person. Like, that's not who I am. If you're, so I'd much rather like be friends and like talk to them as a person than like go after them sexually and make them feel uncomfortable around me. So that was the other one. If I had friends that who were attractive or whatever, I just do I'm a friend. And, oh. Sorry, I got disturbed. Had a delivery come. Anyway, just from what I was saying. So yeah, I had, so yeah, so I was feeling uncomfortable about going with women. Still not sure if I want to just yet. I'm still finding that new. So most people I found attractive, I've kept as friends more than anything else, because in my head I wasn't right. I didn't want to go with them sexually because I didn't feel in my head it was quite right at that moment in time, or and some of them have moved on, or I've moved on from them since, and I realised I don't want to go with them as girlfriends either. But what I've come to sort of learn is I am bisexual, so I am curious about women in certain ways. I do enjoy their company and stuff, but I haven't gone with a woman just yet, so I suppose I'm still sort of bi-curious more than I am bisexual. But I don't care. When I say I'm bisexual, it means I've accepted it. That's what I am, sort of thing. I think for a while I was trying to hide myself away from it, simply because I was just worried about how many people were sort of trying to get with me at that point in time, and I felt this pressure that I had to be a certain way because, as soon as somebody states what a gender is to me, like, not a gender, sexuality is to me, and because at one point I accepted that I'm pansexual as well, and then suddenly people kept telling me that it meant there were so many different meanings to what it was that I couldn't quite work out what it actually is. And in the end, no offense, as much as I once would have said I'm pansexual, I've kind of given up on it and just gone, I don't know what pansexual is. So when people say they're pansexual, obviously if they have their own version of what that is, I'll accept it. But what I mean is, for me, I'm not pansexual, I'm bisexual. It's always been that way for me because that's how it was in the beginning. It was either you're gay or bisexual or lesbian. I'm not saying that obviously if people feel they're more pansexual and that helps them, that's fine. But for me, it just confused me because I feel like every time I've met somebody who says they're pansexual, they have a completely different meaning to how the next person has it, which I realise it's an individual thing. What it means to you is what it is to you, which is the same for me with the bisexuality. For me, it doesn't mean I want everybody. It doesn't mean I'm open for like suddenly, I'm not like walking around with a gong going, hey, I'm about, sort of thing, or I'm not going around running around after people like in that way. That's not who I am. I won't chase people. I've learnt that the hard way. Like, I don't want to be that's it. That was the other thing that used to put me down. A couple of guy friends, not friends with them no more, but a couple of people have described me as needy, desperate, clingy, and even lonely, because obviously the other one is I'm quite a romantic. I do fall in love. I do wear my heart on my sleeve. Whenever I've met someone that I really like, I do fall for them. I do sort of go with that. Oh my god, they're amazing. And sometimes I'm like, oh my god, they're so amazing. I don't see the red flags sort of thing. I sort of go, oh, these are amazing people for whatever reason. And before I know it, my heart's on my sleeve, and I'm going, yeah, it's okay, they can do that. I wouldn't mind. They're good people, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Until you're either in a friendship with them that's not going anywhere, or they may be with you sexually for one thing, but they're not with you for anything else, or they might have a friendship going with you, but really they're after other things. And after a while, and after a couple of different guys where they've done exactly that. I've started going into the pan that, just, like, so yeah, so everything was on everybody else's terms at one point. I think was what I'm trying to get at. So what I realised, the majority of my life in relationships, everything I've done is near enough been on another person's terms, either my sexuality or something like that. It's, if I meet someone, oh, it's this way, and it's this way or the highway kind of thing, and if you don't do it this way, you'll never get me. And I used to get panic because obviously I'm lonely, and yeah, the lonely needy thing. Oh, that means I'll never have anyone, because I had such low self-esteem. At one point I used to think that if I didn't go with whoever liked me at the time, I'd never find anyone. That's how bad it got. That's how bad my low self-esteem got at one point when I was younger, that I believed that if I found somebody who was nice enough to me, who wanted me more than anything in the world and treated me well and all this stuff, then I would be theirs and that would be it, and I wouldn't need to worry so much. I didn't, at one point I wasn't always looking for looks, I wasn't in a, they didn't have to be handsome, they didn't have to suddenly like turn me on, I thought at one point they didn't have to fully turn me on or whatever. Sounds weird, I know, like, you didn't have to like turn me on at all to like for me to react to them. So long as I liked them enough and I could get by, it shouldn't matter, right? Obviously I learned the hard way that's not the case. Obviously I've realised over time, yes, being turned on by the partner you're with is important in other ways, because I found, I've been with partners where I've enjoyed them as a person, but I've not enjoyed them sexually. I've either got bored or it's hurt or it's not gone the way I want to, and I've had to end it suddenly because it's just not the way I want to. But they were lovely people, which is what some of them have been, lovely people. I mean, a couple of my exes in the beginning, not all of them, but a few were quite lovely people, and I felt really bad when they ended, because it wasn't them themselves. I don't want to name names, but there was a guy at the beginning that I did really love. I accidentally fell in love with his best friend as well, but it was, I actually did love him as a person, but I didn't sort of see it at the time, sort of thing, because I was, I suddenly fell in love with his friend as well, and it was a bit of a conflict of interest. I realised I couldn't continue with him because I also had feelings for somebody else, and at the same time, and it just got in my head, and I used to hate myself for it, because I thought, am I this bad person who would cheat on someone? That's what got me in my head. So before it got to that point, I ended the relationship, even though it was early on, and I felt really bad about it, and suddenly I was like, oh my god, I've hurt this really good person who, had just as much self-esteem issues as I did, and I was like, oh, I've really hurt this one person that probably understood just as much as I did in that context, but no matter, I can't continue with him, sort of thing. And so I just like went away, sort of thing, like ran away, sort of, no, I'm not dealing with that. And then a different friend I lived with for a while, and I got to know him over time, and then I thought maybe me and him, we weren't really sexual together. It was just we had a good emotional bond, and I got to trust him, and I felt like, oh wow, I'm going to be with this person for the rest of my life, sort of thing. This got into my head like at one point, where even as friends, we're always going to hang out together, we're always going to meet up, we're always going to do this. Fortunately, that friendship didn't work out either, for its own reasons. I don't want to go into it. I'm not blaming him entirely for it. I realise now, sometimes looking at some things, I am aware I did make mistakes as well in that friendship, as much as anyone, and I do hold my hand up to that. But I realise at the same time, we were both having issues at around about the same time. So I realised, I think it just came to an end because we couldn't quite see the opposite, sort of thing. But I think maybe living together was too much, because we are opposite in certain areas, so I realised after a while, it was probably, when I moved out, I was I need to move because I can't continue living with this person as much as I was wanting to still be friends with them. But then I worked out, once I wasn't living with them, I was kind of glad not to live with them, but I was upset that the friendship ended because I didn't want the actual friendship to end. It was just, I didn't want to have to live in a toxic environment, and I'm realizing he probably didn't want to live in a toxic environment with me, and that's where it got a bit toxic towards the end. Not because we were toxic as people, we're good people, but it just, I either got relied on him too much emotionally, or he kind of relied on me a bit too much financially, and it just I realized, and now looking back on it, I realized, yeah, it was two-sided, it wasn't just one-sided. So from that, I sort of understood it a bit. I don't think we could ever go back to being friends, unfortunately, although I don't want to say never, but just, it's one of them things. I've gotten through it now. I'm not sure if I'm ready to quite go over it again, but maybe in time we'll figure it out at some point. But um, and then basically what I wanted to say. So I'll stop this one as well.